All right, so I'll just do this for a moment. I'm Matt O'Brien. I am the Secretary of the Connecticut Republican Assembly, and I have tonight as a guest so we can speak about his campaign and why he's running. I have Aaron Bowman. He is a resident of Mansfield, and he's running for the State House, District 54. So we'll bring Aaron in now. Aaron, how are you?
Good, Matt. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Absolutely. So we'll just dive right into it.
Excellent.
Who is Aaron Bowman?
Oh, yeah. So I grew up in Tolland, went through the Tolland school system. In '96, I enlisted into the Air National Guard. I did about 6 years active duty between different orders and active guard or reserve up at the 103rd Fighter Wing in East Granby. Did all my time in the security forces. My last deployment was Bagram Airfield in 2011, 2012, and I retired as a master sergeant in 2016 from the Air Force, and I just hit 20 years with my department, the Department of Corrections. So that's another retirement I'm looking forward to come October 1st, should everything go smoothly. And got a blended family. There's 7 of us total. So my wife Alyssa and I actually we met back when there were record stores at the Buckland Hills Mall. And we worked together. I was too chicken to ask her out or anything like that. And so one of my mutual friends from the military, they grew up together, actually put us back in contact years later, and we each had 2 kids, and so and then we have one together, so it's 3 girls, 2 boys. The oldest is 17 and the youngest is 8, who's having a sleepover tonight, so hopefully we don't get interrupted.
So that must be a pretty busy household over there.
It is. It's a very busy household. My wife works as a school nurse. She was in Bloomfield last year. I'm not quite sure where she's going to be this year. She might be going back there, but she was also doing home health care and stuff like that. And so she's working hard. She's been an LPN for 4 years now, and she's working on getting her RN right now through Excelsior, I think is the bridge program she's going through. So yeah, we stay pretty busy,
Yeah,
that's for sure.
very good. And what did you say you're doing now?
So right now, I'm getting ready to retire from the Connecticut Department of Corrections. I started in 2004 at the Supermax Northern. Then I was in the K-9 unit for about a little over 5 years, and now I'm currently at Yukon Medical in Farmington. They have a floor there for inmates when they come in to have any type of medical procedures. But I just hit 20 years with that, so I was one of the lucky ones that still got in at 20 and out. So I'm now in the process of retiring from that, and then the next thing is going to be a full-time representative in the House.
Yeah, it better be, right?
It is. It's going to be. Yeah, we're working our dogs off here to make this happen. And I know this is supposed to be a fundraising event tonight, so to speak, but today we had a real push for the Citizens Election Program. And we have over 150 signatures so far, and I'm waiting for the final numbers, but it looks like we've hit our goal of $5,800 in Mansfield. I cover just the 54th district, so that's Stores, Mansfield, the Yukon campus area. So I have a pretty good chunk of Mansfield, and the 50th covers a small portion of it. But what's really cool is that I am the first Republican in town, as far as I have been told, as far as I know, the first one to ever unlock this grant money. So this is going to be huge for us here in town. The people are really excited. I'm excited. Just the fact that, I still got to wait for the final numbers and all, but it is such a good feeling, the response from the community that has helped stand behind me, knowing that there needs to start putting the Mansfield residents first for a change. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
it was,
So it's pretty historical, actually.
yeah,
This
yeah.
campaign. Yeah.
Yep. It was great when I was door knocking with one of the town council members. We were out the last week and a half door knocking, getting signatures, talking to people. And, it helps a little bit when you're going around with somebody from the town council. And, when we got to tell them, listen, we're collecting signatures. Your signatures got me on the ballot, because I had to petition my way on. I wasn't endorsed by the local RTC. So I petitioned my way to get on. And then the residents were even more excited as I'm talking to them, like, listen, every $5 contribution that you give helps me get closer to unlocking this grant money, which has never been done. And that kind of blew some people's minds. They were like, really? It's never. And I'm like, no, nobody's ever, worked, I guess, as hard as we're working, and we're out there every day making phone calls, door knocking, do what we can to get the message out there that the people in town finally have somebody on the conservative side to vote for. The guy I'm running against has been unopposed since 2016. He's been there since 2011, and I believe the last individual run against him was his cousin Ray Haddad, and there was a gentleman before him. I can't recall his name right now, but from my understanding, between those two, I think they only had like 36 donors. So we're really running a strong campaign here, which is nice.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, it's a breath of fresh air for the district for sure, and I think Mansfield in general, but Eastern Connecticut kind of ignored, you know,
Yeah.
i- in the state legislature. So we need some strong voices that are going to speak out for the issues that people care about out here, east of the river. What kind of issues, are your top priorities? Obviously there's a lot of problems in Connecticut, but which ones do you think that you would be uniquely positioned to tackle?
So, being that I am just running in the 54th, the biggest thing talking to individuals is, one, the economy. The economy is really tough. People are, working multiple jobs, trying to get, make ends meet, and the lack of involvement with community engagement. So, like, one of the things I really want to do once elected is to have, monthly town halls where the residents of Mansfield can come out and talk about their the good, the bad, the ugly, their gripes, their complaints, and really get an understanding of what the struggles are so I can make sure their voices are heard at the state level. The other thing too is that a lot of residents don't feel like they're being put first. It's always UConn, UConn, UConn. And UConn is a great school. It has its place, but there's a lot of residents that live here year round that kind of feel that they get lost. And so it's really going to be advocating for those individuals, the school systems here. People move here for the school systems to make sure that the teachers have the supplies and equipment they need to, handle all the students that are coming in to the local, elementary, middle, and high schools. And I think that's really one of the major core issues is just the lack of how far your dollar goes these days with the economy. And one thing I would like to see here is Mansfield's building. We have projects going on at Four Corners and in some other areas where there's housing being built. Some of it's going to be low income housing, but we're building all this stuff, and we really don't have any light industry here in the town. We have Mountain Dairy, Thompson's, Mansfield Supply, and then if you get into like the downtown area where the school is, there's a lot of burger joints, restaurants, and stuff like that, which is great, but there's really no sustaining industries here for people that want to move here and work. Everybody's got to leave town or go to Hartford, or I know one individual goes all the way down, I believe, to the Groton area. So, those are long rides, and I would like to see some light industrial stuff come in here to support the farms and to support people that want to work locally. And I think those are some of the major things. I mean, honestly, right now, the biggest thing is everybody's been out of shape about the light bill and the public benefit aspect. So that's another thing that has gotten a lot of press lately and has been talked about a lot in town. But really, it's just kind of standing up for the Mansfield residents, making sure their voices are heard at the state level and putting them first. And higher education is important, but higher education has been the forefront for so long here that a lot of the residents feel like they're being left behind.
Yeah, how do you feel about the Republican solution to the public benefit part of the Eversource bill? Is that
You know,
something you would support?
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at some of the stuff today, and there has to me, it really both sides of the aisle are hurting on this, whether you're a Democrat, a Republican, a Libertarian, an Independent, and unaffiliated. And there needs to be something done to bring these costs down. And the biggest thing is they could have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but they could have used ARPA funds. We had all this federal money coming in, and instead of using it to offset some of these costs for people, it went to education, which education, it has its place, but we also need to take care of the residents, the ones that are on fixed incomes, the lower middle class, the people that are working multiple jobs and trying to figure out if they're going to pay their $600 light bill now, or if they're going to put food on their table. And the Republicans have put forth some really good stuff, from what I've read over the last couple days and probably last week. There's so much stuff that seems to be coming out and videos to watch, but we need to you know, put the political stuff aside and say, okay, what is best for the people of the state, and how can we start, not leaving them behind? Because what happened with this public benefit? Yeah, that 4-year moratorium, they knew this was coming. It's not like it just happened overnight, and there should have been better planning in order to ensure that the residents aren't struggling, aren't getting upset, are trying to worry about, okay, am I gonna, pay a bill, or am I gonna feed my kids tonight? So, something needs to be done. And I really would have liked to seen those ARPA funds used appropriately, as opposed to putting them to, education at that point.
Yeah, Connecticut got a lot of money, billions of dollars. And I believe there's still money left in the ARPA account for Connecticut, and it's something that could be used to deal with this issue. I think it has to be used by the end of this year, or the state loses it and it
Correct.
gets returned to the federal government. So it's good to know that you would be signed on to a Republican solution, but reach across the aisle as well, and work with fellow representatives to actually get things done. When it comes to other issues in the state, like we've over the last few years, we've seen revenue issues, fundraising issues like the tolls, the no tolls situation. What are some ways that you think we could reorganize the state budget to make it more sustainable without increasing taxes, or these unique burdens on people, like something as regressive as a toll tax?
To me, I think I try to keep things as simple as possible. And I think Connecticut makes it very difficult for the small business owner to get started, to sustain, to continue running their business. And we need to get rid of some of that bureaucracy and that red tape, and let people start, flourishing and having their businesses. And then those businesses would, and then pay taxes to the state. And, we have to take the burden off the taxpayer themselves. We don't have a major sports team. There's a lot of things that the state could do to make it more of an inviting place for businesses to come, and we just don't
Mm.
do that. We have, people leaving left and right. We had all those gun, manufacturers leave the state, and that all that does is hurt the residents. And the state needs to start looking at, what can we do to get rid of some of this bureaucracy, this red tape, in order to let these small businesses either, one, want to start, or two, flourish and hire more residents within the state to, as they say, keep the money local, I guess.
Yeah, we have to make Connecticut a business friendly state again.
Right. And we're not.
Reducing regulations, fixing the tax code. I mean, there are states that do just fine without an income tax. I'm not saying that we can possibly eliminate the income tax with the items that are in our budget right now, but perhaps down the road. But it's going to start with cutting a lot of less important things that are in the state budget over time, I think.
Yeah, and we need to be more fiscally responsible with our money. If I ran my household as how the state runs it, I'd be broke. And like you said, it isn't business friendly. And it's not friendly to people who retire either. I can't even tell you how many people I know that worked, in the state, that had a retirement, whether they were a state employee or somewhere else, and they up and went to Casper, Wyoming, Florida, Carolinas, because their pensions aren't getting taxed, to no end. So there are things we can do, but I think we're so used to the federal government taking care of everything, and, oh, the federal government just give us money. Like I've told people before, everything starts local. You start at your town council meetings. The towns tell the state what they need. The state tells the federal government, and everybody has that backwards. Everybody thinks, oh, the federal government tells the state what to do, and the state tells the towns what to do. And we need to get back to that grassroots, where the people are coming out. They're coming to their town meetings. They're saying, hey, listen, this doesn't work for us. We need this change. And until I think that happens, we're going to have things like with this public benefit bill where there was funds and there's still funds there, but as far as I know, I don't think there's been a special session called yet, has there? So, I think the Republicans had call for that, and the governor still hasn't said anything, as far as I know. That might have changed, at some point today, but I was busy, well, not keeping up with everything
No, I
because of some
haven't.
other things to
I've
do.
not heard that there's been a special session called, but they're all aware of this.
Right.
They're getting phone calls, constantly in their offices, the Senate, the House, and the governor. I haven't heard any news that anyone has actually been able to speak with the governor. He doesn't make himself very available. But we know that Aaron Bowman will when he sits in his office in the Capitol.
Yeah, I mean, as it is now, like my palm cards that I hand out, I've talked to some people. I'm like, listen, you got any concerns? You got anything you want to talk to me about? My personal cell phone number is on the bottom of that. It doesn't go to some call center. It doesn't go to some online, where it gets filtered or Google voicemail or something like that. I'm like, that's my personal phone number. And some people are like, that's your personal cell. I'm like, yeah, it's my personal cell. They're like, so you're pretty committed to this. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm not just going to be a name on the ballot. Like I'm in this to win it. I'm in it to bring some conservative values back to Connecticut. And, there's a lot of people that, that silent majority that's out there that's just, really just tired. And especially in my district, they haven't had anybody to vote for in years, so, I'm hoping, right now, I'm not trying to have too much hopium as I call it, but I've been telling everybody that I talk to, listen, don't think this, we're gonna, from the national level on down, don't worry about the red wave. Don't think that, this is in the bag for Trump and Vance. Get out to vote. Make sure you bring your friends with you. Talk to somebody, bring 3 or 4 people with you. Make sure your friends are ready to vote and get out there and get that vote. And especially with the early voting here in the state, I know a lot of people don't like it, but let's use it to our advantage. Get out there, bank those votes, do it early as you can. Bring your friend, your neighbor, your cousin with you, whoever, and let's get those votes in. Because I was listening to one podcast the other day, and I guess I don't remember who it was that came out and said they're already worried about denial of service attacks or DOS attacks on election day. And so what? Then the systems get shut down. Now people have to wait in line. Then people get fed up and go home. Let's not let that happen. Let's get out there and get those votes. And that's been my message to a lot of people is, all right, I petitioned my way to get myself on the ballot. I couldn't get endorsed. I've got the money for the citizens election program. We're just waiting on the final numbers. I'm very confident that that's going to come through this week. And now let's start worrying on getting people registered to vote if they're not, getting them out to vote and taking advantage of that early voting so we know those votes are banked early so we can actually, win this and not worry about some red wave or anything like that, especially at the local level. Even our primary we had here, there wasn't a ton of voters that came out. And I think on average, maybe like 30% come out. It's a presidential election, so more will come out, I believe, is what statistically happens. But we need to get
It was
motivated.
about
We need to
seven
get out there.
percent. It was
Yeah,
about a 7% turnout for
for
the
the primary.
primaries.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is nothing. Um,
um, because this election is a presidential year, we should see a much higher turnout than we normally see for state elections. It's
right.
on and off. So I think people are really looking at candidates this year, post primaries. Now that we're past that part of the democratic process. Um, is there anybody that you admire in politics?
You know, uh, I it's kind of an interesting question. This is the first go at it for me. I've never really, outside of being consistent at the town council meetings over the last year. I think I missed one meeting where I didn't speak out, and that was because I had another eye surgery. I really never even thought about running for office. I didn't know the process until I was approached to run, and like I grew up in the '80s. I was a kid of the '80s. I'm a Gen Xer. Like I remember Reagan. I just remembered his presence on TV. I'm sort of a history buff, I guess you could say. Like I like reading stuff on the founding fathers and that sort of thing. And I don't have like particular person, but I am starting to see what others before me have gone through in the work that it takes to do this and to be able to stay true to yourself. Like I'm not a politician. a military guy. I've got some deployments under my belt. I'm a veteran. I work in law enforcement, and I'm a dad, and I like to be outside and, cut wood and run my bulldozer. But it's gotten to the point where, I've been to rallies, I've spoke out at rallies, I've been to protests, I go to the town council meetings. I've done what I feel that I can do in that aspect. And this is kind of like the next step to really start moving that needle uh, to more of the conservative values that I think need to be brought back to, our state and the country. So unfortunately, to answer your question, Matt, I don't have one particular person. Reagan kind of jumps out at me, just from growing up in that time frame, in that era, as a Gen Xer. But you know, maybe after this is all done, I might have somebody that stands out a little bit more. But it's it is an interesting ride so far, to say the least.
For sure, and in very interesting time to be in it. To be in politics. Let's kind of rapid fire through some key issues so we can kind of get a feel for your stance. So I know you spoke to CT Ram
I did.
earlier in the day. Anything to report from that interview?
Yeah, it was a good interview. It was, I've been a part of that group for a very long time, and I've helped uh, behind the scenes with that. So, for example, one other thing I'm keep my eye on is here in Connecticut, we have 19A-77 is a state statute that, in a nutshell, reads: if you have a religious organization, you can provide education to your members' children. And during the COVID and pandemic that was happening, or the pandemic, depending on how you want to phrase it, there were a lot of people that, they felt the government was overreaching, making them wear masks, forced vaccination. You're going to lose your job if you get vaccinated. I believe that a person should be able to choose what vaccinations they want, what vaccination schedule they want to follow for their children. It shouldn't be pushed on, or somebody shouldn't be threatened that they're going to lose their job. So we talked about that for a little bit. And with that state statute that I just mentioned, there were a lot of parents that wanted to pull their kids out of school because of DEI, critical race theory being taught, and losing the religious exemption, which I think is a complete shame. And losing that religious exemption for the state, people should be ashamed of themselves for that. That needs to be brought back for those that have the religious values and religious beliefs when it comes to vaccinations. So in the state, there were a few that set up ministries that not only provided ministerial type activities to their members, but was providing drop off education. And the Office of Early Childhood did not like that. They investigated too back in 2022, 2023. Myself and a local attorney were able to show that based on this state statute, they were able to operate as a religious organization and provide education to their members' children. And so there have been more that has opened up across the state. And now I've been hearing that the Office of Early Childhood wants to change that regulation to put an hour cap on it, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, or what have you, because it's different than having homeschooling where the parent has to be involved in the schooling. This is more of a drop off for the members of the ministry. Their kids can get, Christian ethics and education provided, and not have to worry about vaccinations or mask mandates and any of those things, because they're exempt as a religious organization. And now there's talk of that trying to be changed. So that was kind of a big topic of discussion. And then, the mandates and stuff like that, which I don't support at all. I'm an unvaccinated person myself. I had to deal with it within my department, and
How are you still alive?
I know, it's amazing, right? We should all be dead in the Bowman household right now. But it's just one of those things where we need to have the autonomy as individuals. We need to be self-governed. We need to, start with governing ourselves, then the town, then the state. And I don't need Big Brother, so to speak, to give me some bureaucracy and this nonsense saying I have to do this or I'm going to lose my livelihood. Like that's a serious thing. There's people that lost their jobs, were kicked out of work because they didn't get a vaccination. I think that's just shameful.
Absolutely, and I think we saw a lot of qualities and policies of the Democrats come out and kind of show their true colors during COVID, because a lot of the things that people remember even now from a couple years ago were the mandates, the vaccination mandates that are still affecting residents, the mask mandates, especially on kids. Um, how do you feel about parents having a decent say in their children's education? You know,
They should have the oh,
what
before I
should
answer
the
that, yeah,
what
before
should
I
the
answer that,
relationship be? Yeah,
so going back to the mandate stuff real quick, and I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this yet because I'm not retired, but in the facilities, the inmates that had outside worker clearance were told they were going to either lose their job or couldn't get their job if they didn't receive the vaccination. So it was forced on the incarcerated also. So I'm probably going to catch heat for saying that, but it is what it is. When it comes to, and I think the truth should be out there. So when it comes to children and education, I feel the parents should have the final say whether they want to send them to private school, private education association, public school, religious or Catholic school. It should be the final say uh, with the parents. The school isn't there to raise the child. The school is there to educate and inform them on the ABCs and one, two, three, so to speak, and civics and stuff like that, and then make them or help them rather to be a functioning person in society where they can help better the community that they live in.
yeah,
And I
well
don't think
rounded, right?
well-rounded. And I don't think that's happening in a lot of places. For example, here in town, I was talking to somebody and there was a complaint made that in the elementary school, which I'm going to try to get over there tomorrow if I can get in, that there were some books in the library that were basically shaming white individuals. So I haven't put eyes on that yet. That's just something that was brought to my attention. So that's something now because I have a kid that goes to the elementary school. I want to see what's going on over there. So again, when it comes to the education of the kids, the parents need to be really involved. Get out to those board of education meetings, request to see what kind of education's being taught. Like I have two kids in the Enfield school system, and just by the grace of God, I think it was 2 years ago where Enfield had Pizzagate, and I still am in contact with some friends out in Enfield that are very vocal at the local level. I believe both my
Wow.
kids missed it, and they had a photocopy or ditto, if you remember what they used to be called like that, a photocopy of a pizza, and each pizza topping was a different sexual preference. And I was like, and it was like, oh, it was handed out by mistake. And I was like, are you kidding me? I think it was like seventh or eighth graders that it went out to. I think it was seventh grade because my daughter was in eighth. So, yeah, like that stuff isn't okay with me. That stuff, shouldn't be being taught. Yes, you should probably, like when I grew up, they taught about, sexually transmitted diseases and how you get pregnant and the birds and the bees, and then your parents kind of took it from there. And that is not what's being done. It's almost like, you have people preying on these children in school. I mean, it seems like now it's like once a week that somebody's on TV for, inappropriate relationships with a student. And, that stuff's got to stop. The parents need to get out those board of ed meetings and make sure they see what the curriculum is and are being vocal when those meetings are happening. Cause that's the only way you're going to keep tabs on things and things aren't going to get out of hand within your school systems.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful because I think we've seen a lot of parents beginning to get more involved in Board of Education meetings, in PTOs, any way that they
Absolutely.
can, step foot and actually see what's going on, and make a difference for their kids because you get one shot at raising your kids. And if they're not receiving a good education, then things need to change very rapidly. I was just I got a question from my 5-year-old the other day um, about skin color. So we're trying to look for a book, to explain why people have different skin colors and skin tones. My son happens to be like really tan compared to me. I'm very white. Um, but we were looking for something scientific, but the books we were finding, it just total agenda, behind how they explain to kids. And really all you need is, well, there's something called melatonin. Some
That's it.
people have more of it than others, and people come from different parts of the world, and it,
Yep.
it doesn't mean anything. It's just how you look. You have no control over it, and it doesn't affect anything about you or your character. Um, things like that. So I know that there are a lot of books, that are in education right now that perhaps not all parents would approve of.
Yeah, true, true.
Um, let's talk a little bit about crime in Connecticut. Uh, how do you are you enjoying the crime rate that we're experiencing?
Well, let's see. Since I've been into my department, we've closed, I think, 4 prisons in the state. I know at least 3 in the last couple years. The most recent one they closed was Northern, which was a supermax, which housed all your when we had them death row or life sentenced inmates, and your major gang leaders and your chronic discipline. That closed. They got pushed out to all the other facilities, and then they closed one of the Willard Cybulskis, like a pre-release, and they closed one of those. So they want to make it look like the population is shrinking, but now we have crime all over our streets. Um, it, and again, it's never the criminal's fault. It's always your fault. So you should have locked your car. You should have locked your house. Why'd you leave valuables in your car? Why were you walking down the side of the road when you were punched in the face or mugged? And it's not. We've got plenty of laws on the books. We just need to enforce them. And you know, for whatever reason, we don't want to enforce them. We want to just let them out on the street and all right, special parole or what have you. But yeah, it's not a good thing, I majority of the time carry concealed when I'm out and about, just because things aren't as safe as they used to be, and there is crime everywhere. I have an acquaintance of mine that owns a package store in Vernon, and he had to stop putting certain bottles of booze on the shelf because people were coming in with garbage bags and swiping them off the shelf, trashing the place, and then running out, jumping in a car. They'd get the plate would be stolen, the car would be found somewhere else, and now he's out all this money, and he doesn't want to lock them in the store till the police get there because they'll just trash it. So now he has to put the boxes on there, and you have to, bring up the box, and they have to go in the back and get it for you. Like, that's sad that that's where we're at as a society right now. And, so much of everything is being decriminalized. So, yeah, we need to really, start backing the police, start getting the resources they need, and let them do their job. The Police Accountability Act is another big thing that I think hinders a lot of law enforcement, because they lose that immunity. So now I've talked to others that are like, listen, unless somebody's doing a certain speed on the road, I'm not even pulling them over. I'm not losing my house and everything over it because somebody wants to say I did something even when I didn't. And we see it in the facilities also. I'm a union guy. I've been a union steward for probably at least half of my career, and maybe about a year ago, no, maybe about 8 months ago, there were some individuals walked out and put under investigation as they were escorting an inmate. The nurse was yelling police brutality, even though it was just a routine, escort, from my understanding, from what I was briefed on, and that the inmate was resisting and struggling, and I don't know to what extent, but just because on video the nurse was yelling that, everybody got written up, put under internal investigation, and was on leave. So it's a lot of those things where we need to let our law enforcement do the job they were hired to. And if you are you know, uh, a cop that or a law enforcement officer that abuses your power or your authority, then yes, you should be held accountable. And I don't think there's as many as are made out to be. And we see the lack of backing the law enforcement to where now crime is running rampant. Cars are being stolen left and right by kids. Nothing is being done about it. And that's now what we have to deal with as a society.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of good points there. And it's the car thefts really that I think affect Mansfield in particular. I know that they affect towns around Mansfield, Vernon, Coventry,
Holland, yep.
Ellington, because they come out and they prey upon those rural communities, and they're able to get away with it because they easily steal a car because people leave things in their cars. They leave their doors unlocked.
Yep.
They leave their front door open because they're still trusting that that this isn't going to happen. So there's a lot that I think people can do to affect, uh, some firewall, there to protect themselves. You spoke about carrying a firearm. What's your view on the Second Amendment in Connecticut?
Yeah, it seems like it's under attack everywhere. The Second Amendment is perfectly written the way it is. I'm also an NRA instructor. I've taught and got a whole bunch of classes. I used to do it a lot more back in the day, but I think everybody should have the right to carry. Now, it, again, this is now like my law enforcement side coming out. If you're a convicted violent felon, no, I don't think you should have that right. But if you're a law-abiding citizen, you should have the right to carry. You should have I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, I have a pistol permit. I shoot regularly, but if I want to go hunt, now I have to take a hunting course. Or if I want to buy ammo, I have to get a license to buy ammo if I don't have a pistol permit. Like, and you should be allowed to have the firearms that you want. I love it when people say, well, the Second Amendment was for muskets and cannon. If I could get my hands on a cannon right now, that would be a cool thing to have in my yard. I'm just saying. But it's the right to bear arms. And we also have to remember that it's for a well-regulated militia. And if you want to carry, I'm not saying everybody has to, but if you want to carry, you want to go shoot, whether it's for recreational, sport, hunting, to put food on your table, you should be able to do that with, you know, out a lot of limitations enforced on you. Yes, I think the NRA courses or a pistol course or concealed carry course is good. You should learn how to use the firearm. I've been carrying the so-called weapons of war since I was 19 years old in the Air Force. I was in
So
security
hold on, you
forces.
you carried an AR-15 into war?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I had
How
one
did
in
that work out?
Afghanistan. It was great to have it, but we carried.
No, you use M16s, right?
Well, we had M16s, M16A2s. Then we had, yeah, I think it was the M16A2 was the last one I carried. I might be wrong, but
Well, those are full automatic, right?
no, 3 round. Well, the old
No, the
M16A1s, those
burst.
were fully auto. Those you don't see anymore. The ones they have now are the 3 round burst, so it's a semi or 3 round burst, and that's really because you can't hit anything on fully auto. The 3 round burst is for you to be able to make sure that you can maintain your shots on your target while not burning through all your ammo. And even when you qualify, you're not you do a few shots on 3 round bursts. The majority of it is shooting center mass to disable your target. And I've carried a firearm since I was 19. I grew up shooting in Tallinn with my father. I started on a 22. Now my kids shoot 22s and BB guns, and it's for me, I think it's a good life skill to know how to operate one of those. So if my kids are at somebody's house and they're like, "Hey, look at my dad's gun," one, they know the kids shouldn't be playing with it, and two, if they had to make sure that it was safe and clear, they know how to operate the firearms. But again, anybody that owns firearms, they should be locked up and in a safe where only the adults have access to it. And it's just it's one of those things where I don't, it's constantly seems to be a leftish issue where they don't want us to have any type of way to defend ourselves, whether you're, walking through the woods and you're worried about bears or you're worried about a mugger. We should have the right to protect our own life and to defend ourselves, or to, do the recreational shooting. So, I think the Second Amendment's perfect just the way it is. And I think more people should be getting out and joining your local gun range and learning how to shoot. And most gun ranges have different challenges, and you can try shooting under stress and all those different things, which really builds, your confidence in using a firearm. I was teaching NRA courses and firearm courses to people. There were people that I would come in, they're like, yeah, never shot a pistol before in my life, but this is something I feel that it's going to, you know, I guess empower a little bit would probably be the correct terminology, where I feel more at ease, more comfortable around the firearms. My father, people are like, my father had one growing up, and I want to be confident that if, I decide to go out and purchase one, I have the training and skill set behind that. And the NRA course is really a safety course. And I think more people should go out and get those courses, for the family and kids. There's, I think it's called Apple Seeds for kids, where different gun ranges can, they teach kids how to shoot. They use 22s, they shoot at steel targets, they have competitions. And it's just one of those things where if you know how to use the equipment, it's not so scary anymore.
Yeah, it's all about education, right?
Yep.
Making sure that people, especially kids, understand that these are not toys and they can be destructive, but they're also tools, and you have to treat a tool with respect and learn the guidelines surrounding the safety of that tool.
Yep. And when it
Um,
comes to, a lot of these gun laws that they try to pass and they try to push, it's usually after some mass event that happens. And then, if you look at, I don't even know what the number of homicides are in Bridgeport right now, or, any like Chicago, Hartford. You, it's not the legal gun owners that are going out there and shooting up the town. It's the criminals that are, either coming across the borders, the MS-13s and other gangs that are coming in, or your Bloods, your Crips, and all the other different gang sets that are out there that are doing this. They're not going to Cabela's and buying a gun over the counter. As far as I know, I haven't heard of any of them that have done that. And
no.
the majority of them get them off the street that have the serial number filed off, or it was stolen in somebody's house. Because, like you said, in Mansfield, there's still people probably that leave their door unlocked because we're in a rural community. The community has been relatively safe over the years. Same thing in Tallinn. And now they say, hey, we can go out there. These people shoot. They live on a farm. We'll be able to get, at least maybe a shotgun, or, a 9mm type pistol. And now it's gone because, even if it, most of the time it probably in like the drawer next to the bed, in the nightstand. And those guns are the ones that end up on the street and wherever else they come from. There's been smash and grabs in other places. I think a few years back, there were some guns stolen out of a place in Windsor, gun shop. But those are the ones that are causing the crimes. You don't see majority legal gun owners that are using it to hunt with, recreational, shoot, self-defense in their home, going to the city on the weekend and doing a drive-by, or shooting up a house, or, recklessly killing somebody that, the life, there should have been no loss of life. But because we don't enforce the laws that are on the books, and we let people just, do what they want, and we don't enforce anything, then these are the consequences we have to live with.
Well said. We're going through a lot of complicated topics today.
Yeah, let me know if I start getting
That's
off
good.
topic.
No, you're perfect. This is great. I don't this these are kind of anecdotes that people don't usually get from candidates because,
I'm
you're
just a real
just
person, man.
speaking, yeah, you're just speaking frankly
It's literally,
about how
I
you
don't have
feel.
anything written, about this stuff. We didn't talk beforehand about questions. This is just how I generally feel about things. And we need more people not to be afraid to stand up and speak their mind. And, like I said in the beginning, get out to your local meetings, your local town councils. You know, One thing that I forgot to mention, when I started showing up, I was by myself majority of the time, unless there was some big thing going on in town, then a whole bunch of people would get there to talk. But now, and consistency, like they say, is key, that I've been consistently going to meetings. When I started door knocking to get myself on the ballot, I called one young man. I'm 46. I think somebody in their 20s is a kid these days. And he's like, "Hey, you're Aaron. You're the guy with the eye patch, right? At the town council meetings." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And I'm like, "Oh boy, how's this conversation going to go?" And he's like, "Yeah, come by my house. I've been watching the town council meetings. I like what you have to say." Great. So, I got a signature from him. I've gotten Democrats in town and unaffiliateds have been appreciative about what I've been saying at some of the town council meetings. I'm just trying to use common sense about things. And now there's about 5 of us that meet. We get together beforehand at the Starbucks on campus. Then we kind of talk about what topics, if any, we're going to talk about. The last one was, the public benefit and the EverSource rate increase. And then we all go over to town hall together. And now the town council is starting to see that, like, oh, now there's more. And I have more people that I've met through door knocking and campaigning. They're like, yeah, I'd like to get involved and help out. And I'm like, great, that's what we need. You need to have numbers, and it to start with, just you could be the person that starts it and just get out there and be consistent about it. And you don't have to talk every time. Maybe you have something you say, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to bring up something on the national scene, but there's enough, trust me, when you start looking to your town, there's going to be enough that you can talk about for 5 minutes or so at a town council meeting to really bring awareness to what's going on.
For sure, and I'm glad you're encouraging other people to get more involved in local government, in addition to what's going on at the state and the national level, because I think a lot of times during presidential election years, people are only paying attention to what's going on that's on the news all the time, and not so much in their local communities. And
True.
really, that's where they can make the biggest difference in town elections, town politics, and uh,
Yeah,
state
absolutely.
politics, and in their choice of a state representative.
Yep.
Do you think that Connecticut should take more illegal aliens or migrants into Connecticut?
Short answer, no. I think we have what 117,000 right now in the state. The last time I checked, that number could have changed. This was actually something of a concern of mine that I brought up to the town council. Oh man, a few months ago, I was looking at the crime. We've had women and children raped and murdered, not necessarily here in Connecticut, but across the country. And just because it happens in one state doesn't mean it can't happen here in Connecticut. And those horrific acts, they made national news headlines and stuff. And with all the building that's going on around town, um, these apartment complexes and whatnot, one of my questions to the town council was, how do we know as a community that the town's not going to take money from the federal government or the state to house illegal immigrants here? And of course, no, you don't get a response at public comments, but that's a concern of mine. I have no problem anybody coming into this country legally. But if you're crossing the borders that are not secured, and it's, from what I've been watching, it's not a lot of women and children. Well, there are children being trafficked, but there's a lot of military age males that are coming across. And I think was this past week they've caught 3 or 4 that were on the terror watch list. And you would be naive to say that they're not coming here to set up cells and possibly have something as horrific as 9/11 again. You know, we can't have a country if we don't have secured borders. And I don't think bringing more illegal, possibly violent immigrants into Connecticut benefits us in any way, shape, or form.
Very good. I agree. Um, I'm trying to think of something we might disagree on.
I don't watch sports, so if you got a sports team, I can pick the
No,
opposite
me
for you.
neither. That's a kind of a waste of time, in my
Yeah, yeah.
opinion. It depends on who's playing.
I think my wife
Um,
actually knows more about football than I do, and I, can't believe I just said that live on air.
right.
But yeah, it's a shame. Not a shame, but I just don't have the time for it. There's too many other things that I am involved in, and you know, um, concerned about to sit there. I think if anything, I might watch something on the History Channel for a little bit, but we're always doing something. So
You said you're a history buff. What do you enjoy? Do you read history or do you watch history?
yeah, a little bit of both. So I'm looking at some of the books. What do I have handy right now? I'm also so I have my bachelor's in law and policy and procedure. So I got that from Liberty University just this year. So I'm late to the education game. I guess I really couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with my life early on, and so I find the law very interesting too. So I've been diving into that, and I actually was planning on attending law school at Trinity Law out in California. It's just because it's online, it's just easier for me. And that all got put aside, when I decided to run for office. So we'll see how, if that's in the cards for me down the road. But I'm looking and I'm trying to, of course, I can't see any of the books that I have. I
Is there a
like a lot of the,
particular time period that interests
the,
you?
well, I'm getting more into the Connecticut history lately, especially in like Willimantic and Putnam with the people that were in the Revolutionary War and stuff like that. Like Connecticut's got a real rich history, and I didn't learn any of it in school growing up here. So
No,
now I'm
yeah,
kind
me
of
neither.
now I'm kind of catching up on it, and yeah, it's very interesting. I've kind of put that on hold because I'm trying to finish up Charlie Kirk's new book. The what is it? Right Wing Revolution, I think it's called, or something like that. So I'm trying to finish up that book first, but I do a lot of audiobooks and because I'm always in my car, it's in my truck. So
Yep,
I
you got
do a
a
lot
good
of
drive time.
yeah, wherever I'm driving around, it's usually an audiobook or a podcast. But yeah, it's very interesting to see what we fought for this country back then and now where it's at, and the amount of um, socialism, I guess, is the best way to put it, that has creeped its way into the country. But yeah, it's one of those things where I love reading about it, but if I don't write it down, like I just, I forget it. It's just so much stuff coming and going all the time. But yeah, it's the Connecticut history for me lately has been interesting. I just was door knocking on oh, if I can remember the hey I'm gonna get the name wrong. I think the last name might be Hayes. No, oh man, he was a colonel out of Willington. I cannot remember the last name, but this guy was related to him, and he actually had his original cane, and he had all the history based on when he lived in Willimantic and stuff like that. And it was really interesting. Like we were there to get a signature, myself and Brian, who was going around with me, and we went downstairs to his, like, it was like the man cave of man caves when it comes to like Revolutionary War, the history of the state. And oh, it's going to kill me that I can't think of the gentleman's last name. But when you just held this cane, like the energy that came out of this cane, like it gave you goosebumps when you held it, just knowing that, it was in that time period. He was a colonel in the war, and it was just really cool. And it's gonna kill me that I can't think of this person's name now. But it is almost 9 o'clock at night. So,
It is,
yep.
yes. Um, any other policies that you would like to enact or work on with the legislature if elected?
So one thing that's always bothered me, even before I got into politics, is the fact that one could, be in their golden years, as they call it, have their house fully paid for, and be on that fixed income. And if they can't pay their property taxes, the town can come and take their house. And I've always had an issue with that. People work really hard for what they have. And I personally think if you are in your golden years, let's say over the age of 70, for conversation purposes, that your taxes for your property should be dr- drastically cut, if not completely removed. So, like, I know legislation just passed it for veterans that are 100% disabled, which I think is awesome. And I don't think there's anybody that voted against that, and that is great for the veterans in the state. I think we also need to do something for that community that is in their golden years and on a fixed income, and maybe it has something to do with a certain, based on income for the household, that there's different percentages that are deducted or fully removed. But there is something that I think we can do for that older generation to give them that security that no matter what happens in life, you're going to have that roof over your head. And I think that's really important, um, because if we don't do something like that, I think we're going to continue to see more generational households, and I love my mother-in-law, but we were only supposed to be there for a year and ended up being a year and a half before we bought, or a year and a few months, rather, not a full year and a half, but a year and a few months. It was supposed to be 6 months. It was like a year and like 3 months, I think, until we closed on this house in Mansfield. And as great it is living with family, it's always tough when, not for so much for me, but for my wife. It's, you're still the child regardless of how old you are and how old your parents are. So I do think we need to do something for that older group, to be able to let them know that we're here for them. Some of them are part of, there's still some that were in World War II. They've done their part. They've worked hard for, their community, their family, their country. And we need to ensure that they have that roof over their head regardless of what comes, down the road. So that's just one other thing that's always bothered me. So I'd like to see something done with that. And again, I'm new to all this politics stuff, so I guess I'll just kind of work that in as I go down the road once I get into office in November.
Seems like you're a pro, honestly. I mean, you're very well spoken.
Thank you.
I can tell that you're a born leader for sure. And I really respect your military service, and I thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to say to young people? You mentioned you're from Gen X. Were you born in what,
78.
78? So
Yep.
I happen to be a millennial.
Okay.
Uh, So, do you have anything to say to like my generation or even Gen Z? Because there's going to be a lot of new voters this
Yes,
election
there
cycle.
are. Yeah, if you're going to be the voting age by November, make sure you're registered. Start getting involved. When I started getting involved with these other two gentlemen that are, I think one's 26, the other one's probably in his early 30s, I think. It was like a breath of fresh air because it's like, oh, great. Now even the younger crowd is getting involved and they're coming out to local meetings, and it's just one of those things where regardless of when you were born, get out there, get ready to vote if you're going to be eligible. Bring your friends, get your friends registered, ask them, have that conversation. And it doesn't have to be a conversation. Are you a Republican, Independent, Green Party, Libertarian, Democrat? Just get out, get that conversation going, and say, hey, let's go to the voters of registers office together. Let's get signed up. Make it an afternoon, and then go get a cup of coffee afterwards. But take those initial steps, especially if you're going to be a new voter, and then talk to others in your family that maybe have voted before and see what kind of guidance they can give you. But it's going to take all of us coming together, getting out, having our voices heard, being consistent, showing up at those meetings. There's meetings where I had to work third shift and I had to, I slept 3 hours that morning, got up, put my talking points together, ran over to the town council, and I'm literally watching it on YouTube while I'm driving over there. I'm listening, I shouldn't say watching, listening to it on YouTube as I'm driving over because I know I'm going to be close to when public comments are going to happen. And that one night, two other people showed up before me. Thank God. So I was able to get in there and still talk, then run back home, change in my uniform, and go to work. So sometimes you're going to have to make small sacrifices like that, but it's that consistency, getting together with others in your community or friends, or, even if you don't have anybody in your community, maybe you got a friend in the next town over, say, hey, are you going to come support me on this? I want to go talk. I might be a little bit nervous. And it is nervous the first time you get up there and you're sitting in front of that panel and you got the microphone on, they got a timer going, but go up, have some talking points, talk about what your concerns are. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And then others will start to join you and you can start to build that momentum. And that's what we all need to start doing in our local communities. So, regardless of what generation you're from, it's just like, again, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't even know what generation a 26-year-old is, to be quite honest with you. But,
I believe
the
Z.
Z, is it Gen Z?
Yep, yep.
And,
I don't know
one,
the date ranges offhand, but I
yeah.
know what I am.
But one of these guys, 26 years old, he was an independent. I knocked on his door, went over to his house from a phone call rather, and talked to his fiance. That was on a Thursday. That Saturday, he was out door knocking with me because he wanted to get more involved, and he was just waiting for somebody to, I guess, knock on his door and say, hey, you want to get involved? And now we've done other things together, and he comes to the meetings every Monday, and it's just getting that momentum going. And I don't care where you're from, what you look like, just get out there, join forces, and let's let our conservative voices be heard for a change, and not be afraid to speak up for what you believe in. I've spoken pretty freely here tonight. I've, tried to tone it down a little bit because sometimes, the military background, my mouth likes to slip a little bit, but and the other thing my mother told me the last interview I did on the radio, I say, too much, and I need to get a jar to put like $1 in every time I say it because I've already caught myself saying it like 3 times tonight.
It's
But
not so bad. There's no ums or ahs, so
yeah, that's the other
you
thing
get a
I try to
total
work
pass
on.
from me.
Oh, great. So it's just getting together and taking those initial steps. So if you're a new voter, get registered. Call your town clerk's office. They can put you in contact with the voter register. They can get you registered. You can register whatever affiliation you like. But look at the parties, look at what they actually stand for. Don't look at the national stuff. If you want to know what a Democrat, or as I call them these days, progressive, stand for, go to their website and see, and then look at how their policies have affected you over the last 3 years. If you want to know more about the Republican Party, look at what their values, their core values are, what they stand for, and then try to think back 4 years ago if you were working, what your working life was like, how far your dollar went, if you could go on those dates for under $100, as opposed to today where I took my kids to go see that Harold and the Purple Crayon the other day. There
Right.
was three kids, two adults, popcorn, sodas. It was over $60. So I don't know how people, you know, can go out nowadays on dates. Like I have a 17-year-old. I'm like, I don't know how you do it, man. Like I give you some money, your mom gives you money, that sort of thing. He's actually working now at Goodwill. So, he's putting in his effort and having that, building those routines to where you're providing and helping society along. But yeah, it's just take those initial steps and ask somebody if you're nervous or you're unsure. People are willing to help you. You just got to be willing to ask.
I want to spend another hour, but we can't.
Yeah, no,
I'll
no
just
worries.
if people want to get involved, and I think you explained it pretty well about door knocking and things like that. But it can be a blast. Working with people, you'll make friends, and you'll
Absolutely.
probably learn a good deal, and also learn from people at the door about what they care about, and you could bring it back to the campaign and see if it
Yep.
can get implemented into policy because they could really make a difference in that way. What are you looking for right now? Are you looking for volunteers?
Yeah, we have I've met three ladies that are looking to volunteer. I am looking for more volunteers, people that want to make phone calls. I know that can be nerve-wracking, but the way I look at it is the worst they can do is just hang up on you and tell you no, and you just go to the next one. You can't let it get under your skin. I'm also looking for people if you're in the Mansfield area and you want to come out and meet with us and do some door knocking. We can set that up. That is going to be huge. We have a lot of unaffiliateds in town. They actually are more than the Democrats and the Republicans. So that's the base I really need the most help with is reaching out to them. So if you want to reach out to me, you can do it through the website. It's Bowman, Bowman, 4FOR, MansfieldCT.com. You can shoot me a text. My phone number is 860-849-9227. It's all over the place. I'm not really
It's
that hard
out
to get a
there.
hold of. So, it's out there. I will take any help I can get. I think the donation button's still up on the website. I think we're past or we just broke the line of $5,800. Again, I'm waiting for the final tally. So if you want to donate $5, you can do that also. That also goes a long way. And
Yeah, we've got the direct link
oh,
up on the
great.
post. We also have a link to the website, like you said,
Awesome.
Bowman for mansfieldct.com.
Yep. And
And
I
you've
will
given
take
your phone number.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's I'm in this to win it. I'll take the help I can get. I'll take if you got an hour on a Saturday, you want to go knock some doors with me, we'll get you set up with Campaign Sidekick on your phone. It tells you whose door you're knocking on, how old they are, what their affiliation is. There's a lot of great technology out there that we can use to our advantage. And if you want to come during the election season in November rather and hold up a sign, that's great too. I'll take any help I can get because it's going to take an army to flip this seat. This guy's been in position since 2011. I don't think he's had a real actual campaign run against him, and that's really what we're doing. It's that the A train is coming, I guess you could say. We're
Yeah.
really pushing for this, and just from talking to everybody in town, yeah, even though I'm not endorsed by the RTC, this is the people are very excited and enthusiastic that there is actually somebody running that is a conservative that they can vote for finally. So
Yeah, somebody
yeah,
that people can get behind. You've gotten, and I think you will be getting a lot of support across the state. You're an impressive guy, I have to say.
thanks, Matt. Yeah,
If people want to visit your Facebook as well, the name is Aaron Bowman for Mansfield. If you do a search of that, you can locate the Facebook page. Can they message you on there, or do you have an
yeah.
email that you want to
You
share?
You can message me on there. You can find Aaron Bowman on Facebook. My page is public, my personal page, I think. You can reach out to me there. I'm on X. I think it's Bowman54. I could be wrong. I'm not on X a ton. That's kind of new to me, being part of this political thing. And yeah, my the email is oh, what is it's just Aaron. We'll just use my personal email. That's fine. It's going to be Aaron.p as in Peter.Bowman at gmail.com. There's one on the website. That one's like all political stuff or for the campaign. And I can't remember the exact, I think it's Bowman for Mansfield at protonmail.com, but or proton.me, but I might be wrong. So you can
Yeah,
just
your
click.
handle on X is Bowman454, so it's F54, the digits.
Okay.
Bowman454. I like
Yeah. So,
it.
yeah, you can send me a message on X or what have you. So, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, just give me a call or shoot me a text and we can have those conversations and I'll plug you in where I can, and more the merrier. I will not turn anybody away, that's for sure.
Sounds great. And if people care about what becomes of where they live and the local politics and state politics, they have to reach out to you. Hopefully, people will come in droves to door knock with you and go to events with you. And I know you've been out there a lot, so props to you for that. And I know we're going to see a lot more of you. What are you going to be doing for the next couple of weeks before November? It's coming up really quick.
Yeah, so that's going to be the topic of discussion tomorrow, I think, with my campaign manager, Devin, and a few others once we finalize the final numbers for the Citizens Election Fund. There's a Battle of the Band in stores this weekend over by the campus area. So I will be there after hitting up the Brooklyn Fair first because I got to take the kids to the fairs. It's fair season. So we're going to do that. Then hit the Battle of the Bands. There's 4 bands playing in the afternoon, I think, starting at 4. So I'm going to go have my Bowman for Mansfield t-shirt on, hand out some palm cards, talk to a few people, and just really getting the word out. I am also looking, if anybody who's watching this has any contacts on the campus, I've reached out to the Turning Point chapter and the Young Republicans on campus. Haven't gotten anything back from them. That was at the end of last year, so I haven't reached out again this year, but their Facebook pages are very haven't been very active. So if anybody has any contacts with UConn students, I would love that just to get into the younger crowd on UConn, because I'll tell you right now, the Democrats bust them in on DATCO buses on election day, and they bring them in every 15 to 20 minutes. I watched it last presidential cycle, so I'm going to need help with canvassing UConn, getting in touch with those students out there. My first call probably Monday is going to be to the ROTC program on there, see if I can put any military connections together and get the ROTC possibly involved, or at least if there's anybody that's interested in helping out, handing flyers and information on campus. That's gonna be the big thing.
Those guys used to land their helicopters outside my dorm when I was at UConn, so
Oh,
that
okay.
was a good way to wake up in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very involved in UConn, so I'm sure we can try to find those connections. And the college Republicans will have to get a new contact as well. I
Yep.
knew the previous president, but that would be a good way to get involved in campus politics. Be very good.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the goal. And there's some few things I'm looking at with student loans. I haven't worked it out yet. I got to talk to a CPA on some things that I think would benefit the state and the students and not keep them in perpetual student debt for their entire lives, while not actually just saying, "Hey, here's the blessing, it's paid for," and putting it on the taxpayer. Um, you know, Kind of has to do with simple interest and that sort of thing. But I'm not letting that cat out of the bag yet until I have a final consensus put together. But I think there's a way to help college students while still helping the state, and just making it where they're not paying student debt for 30 or 40 years or whatever it is. Luckily, I had the GI Bill, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. But
yes,
seeing
yeah.
some of I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy. I like to listen to his podcast, and just hearing some of the amount of debt that kids come out of college with is just mind blowing. Like it's astronomical. It's insane. I just don't get it personally, but
Yeah, there's a lot of issues out there. Well, it is 9:08, so we'll wrap things up. I'll just give you the final word, but before that, I just want to thank you for coming on and speaking to the audience and really sharing a really vast array of different topics and for us to learn more about yourself. That's been really great. But I'll give you the last word, Aaron. Thank you.
yeah, I just want to say thank you for everybody watching and spending your evening with me tonight and with Matt. I really do appreciate this opportunity. This has been the longest interview I've done so far since running for office, and I appreciate all the tough questions and the discussion. And again, if anybody is looking to get involved, please feel free to reach out. I'm pretty easy to find online. And thanks again for the opportunity, Matt, and to spend the evening with you all.